Hello everyone. I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. I'm so grateful that you guys are subscribing, commenting, and supporting me. I really appreciate the support. And in this one, I want to speak to you about a little bit of a difficult topic, because I know that I've kind of been in that mode of suffering for a lot of my life. And I've imagined and played the victim role for a lot of my life as well. And so for me to come in this video and tell you guys, oh, well, no, you shouldn't do this anymore, it kind of seems a little bit hypocritical. But I'm sharing my learnings and my lessons from that part of my life, so hopefully that's not too hypocritical. I'm not saying I didn't do it, but I'm saying that it wasn't useful to me at least. And so I was hoping that if I shared my learnings, maybe you'd learn something from it and you'd stop playing that role. There's this thing INFJs think, unfortunately. They believe this about themselves. They believe that they're unworthy of love or anything good in their lives. And little by little, as you get healthier, you kind of let go of that notion. But we also have this belief, which is kind of related to the unworthiness, that we should suffer. If we're on this planet, we should suffer. We're here for suffering, that life is suffering. A lot of INFJs have this kind of idea that life is suffering. And that not particularly that every life is suffering. In fact, they want everyone else not to suffer, so that they're like, well, I'll take on everyone else's suffering. I'll suffer instead of them. Or, give me all the suffering, God, or like universe, and then you can like have happy lives for everyone else. That's the way we kind of look at the world. It's kind of really difficult to even explain to someone who doesn't get it. But if you're an INFJ listening to this, you're probably like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's what I do. I did that a lot when I was younger. In fact, I'd always be like, let me suffer instead of my siblings. Let me suffer instead of my parents. Let me take on all the suffering instead of this world. Let me take on all the suffering of the animals, and let me do all of the suffering, and everyone else can be safe and free. Of course, the point of suffering is not because the universe hates you. The point of suffering is because you learn from it, right? There's basically lessons. And eventually you realize that, it's not actually suffering, but lessons. And then you kind of change your viewpoint and you're like, oh, I don't need to suffer anymore. It's just a lesson I'm going through. And it's going to pass, and I'm going to get a lesson, and I'm going to be better off because of it. But while you're younger and you're a little bit, you're still learning, you realize, or you think that you're like, this is suffering. Life is suffering. Everything about life is about suffering, and I'm supposed to suffer. And in fact, if I'm going to suffer anyways, I'm stronger. INFJs think that about themselves. They're like, I'm stronger than everyone else around me. I can take it, they think. And so if I can take it, then they're like, well, then I should be the one who takes on all the suffering of the world instead of someone else. And we kind of look at the people around us, especially if we're like close to our family. We're like, no, they're fragile and they're weak and they can't take it. I can take it instead of them. I'll take all of it. Just give it all to me. So, obviously this is a little bit kind of crazy, but what we do in addition to that, which is even crazier, which I wanted to speak about, is that we deliberately pile on suffering onto our shoulders, because we think that if we are suffering more, then the people around us don't have to suffer as much. And also, if we suffer more, then we are a good person somehow. It's like this weird connotation, and obviously a lot of it has to do with the Christian teachings that are very predominant in the world right now. Nothing to say about Christianity. I don't want to have an argument about religion here. This is not what I'm saying. But it is a very pervasive attitude in the world where human beings are evil and impure and they need to suffer. And if they suffer well and they do it in a good way, then they're good and they can go to heaven, right? That's a basic idea that's kind of running through the same tape that's running through most people's head nowadays, even if you're not Christian. I learned this lesson, and I'm not a Christian at all, but I know this lesson, and it's been ingrained into me because I live in a world where it's predominantly Christian views, right? Like I lived in Canada most of my life. Even though it's very secular, it's still very predominantly Christian. And like a lot of the teachings in the world are basically, with regards to suffering, are Suffer, and the more you suffer, the better you are. If you can suffer a lot, you're a good person, and then you're going to go to heaven. And so somehow INFJs love this lesson because they're like, yes, more suffering for me, awesome. This works out perfectly well. Because also we believe, as I said, we're unworthy, we deserve suffering, we should suffer more than other people because we're terrible people. I don't know why we think we're terrible. Somehow we believe that's the truth. And so we're terrible people, we need to suffer. We need to bring more suffering upon our lives, upon our shoulders. And so we do that to ourselves. And then we kind of live a life of suffering. We never enjoy ourselves. We never buy anything good for ourselves. The more we suffer, the better we feel about the fact that, yeah, I'm a really good person. I'm suffering so much. It's great. I must be a really, really good person. I must have been Mahatma Gandhi in my past life, or I must have been Mother Teresa in my past life. I'm suffering so much in this one. So, or something like that, you know. And so we kind of like do this to ourselves, not realizing that while we're doing this, while we're playing out this drama of this terrible soap opera of, yeah, I'm suffering and I'm a terrible person and I'm going to suffer more so that I can suffer more and more and I can go to heaven, or I can be lauded or like be applauded for the fact that I'm a good person. Oh my God, look at how much they're suffering. There must be such a good person. So we play out this tape in our head, and I know this tape because I've played it many times in my head, and I'm thinking to myself now, when I play this tape, I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? Why are you living this life where you think that just because you suffer that you're a good person? No, you're not a good person just because you suffer. You're a good person in general. That's just the person you are. It's fine. You don't have to suffer in order to prove anything to the world or to prove anything to God. God's not sitting there thinking, all right, yeah, she suffered today. Oh, that's good. Yeah, she's a good person. That's not how this world works. It literally irks me when I think about it for myself when I'm doing it. So you don't need to suffer in order to be like, all right, I've suffered enough today, good, I can go to sleep happy and with a clear conscience, and then wake up tomorrow again and suffer again, and then, yeah, okay, then I can check it off, and eventually everyone's going to look at me like, wow, you're such a good person, you're amazing, you've suffered so much. No one's going to look at you like that. Actually, in fact, what's going to happen, which is why we start resenting people, is that it's not enough, never enough. No matter how much you suffer, you need to suffer more. You didn't suffer enough, and no one even actually pays attention to you, so they don't know how much you suffered. And then no one knows how you've lived your life, and they don't applaud you, they never allowed you, never give you any accolades for it. And you realize in the end that you did all of that suffering, you went through all of that shit for nothing, because it was useless. No one even noticed it. No one even actually noticed the fact that you're suffering, because they were too in their own heads and in their own suffering to notice what you were going through. That's one of the reasons why I've told you over and over again, is that, you know, you really have to realize that if you're doing something for someone else, they're not even noticing that you're doing it. If you're going to do something, do it for yourself. If you're going to do something, do it for yourself. I want to repeat this lesson over and over again, because as soon as you start doing something for someone else, you have expectations. And when they don't fulfill those expectations, because they won't, they're just too busy with their own stuff to notice what you're doing, and we're not going to talk about it. We just expect them to know. They're not going to just know. And so then we get resentful. We're like, well, I did all of this stuff, and I suffered for this person, and I suffered here and there, and I did this and that, and I went without this and that. But they never even notice. How dare they? People are terrible. And then we start door slamming people and getting rid of people and sitting there thinking, I'm better off alone, and la la la. And then there's another story that we play out there. And so, like, I mean, it's kind of funny when you look at it from the inside out, but like looking at it from the outside in, people are looking at you like, why are you behaving like this? And me too, sometimes I'm looking at myself like, why am I doing this to myself? What is the point of all of this? Where am I trying to get with all this suffering and all this melodrama? Right? It literally is a soap opera I'm creating in my own head. Woe is me, and look at how terrible my life is, and everyone should be commending me for the fact that I suffered so much. They should be bowing down to me because I suffered so much. I am suffering almost like Jesus Christ suffered, you know, like things like that. And you're like in your head thinking all this BS. And that's what we do. We kind of hold suffering as a shield or as like a badge of honor, and we're like, wow, I suffered so much. Look at, I'm going without this. I don't even have proper shoes, and you know, I didn't even buy new shoes for like 10 years, and look at how cool I am. Or, you know, I don't even have a car. I have to walk 3 hours to get to work, or things like that. And we kind of use that as I said, a badge of honor, and we kind of go around lauding it over people who don't actually care and don't notice. And all of a sudden we're like, yeah, no one actually notices, no one actually cares, and we get over it pretty quickly, hopefully pretty quickly. Unfortunately, some people don't, and some people just kind of play out this role their entire lives. I know loads of people who do that still, not just INFJs, people in general. But I really want to kind of focus on all the INFJs who are listening and really explain to you or implore you to realize that the storyline that you're working upon is not working for you. It's completely bogus. It's completely nonsense. And no one is actually going to applaud you for suffering in their place, or pretending to suffer in their place, or playing that role of suffering. No one is going to applaud you. No one's going to give you those accolades that you're looking for. It's not useful to you, especially, and it's not useful to anyone else, especially as well. And it's just not useful to anyone in general. And it's not going to create that life that you're looking for. It's actually not. It's actually going to pull you away from that life you're looking for, wanting to live. And so actually it's a negative rather than a positive in so many different ways. And I'm sure you're listening here right now and realizing that, hopefully. Now, this video is already very long, so I'm going to cut it off here. But if you have questions about this, and if you want me to do a follow-up video, let me know. It's a very difficult lesson to learn. It took me a while to learn it, and when I learned it, I was like, wow, I wasted so much time in that. So I really don't want you to waste any more time on it, hopefully. But if you have questions, comment below and I shall do a follow-up for sure, because this is a very important topic. You really need to learn this lesson. I think everyone does. Everyone really does need to learn this lesson, but INFJs particularly. Again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being on my channel. I really appreciate your support, and I shall see you the next time around. Bye for now.